My name's Christen. I'm with the Coalition for Fair Employment in Construction. We're announcing the formation of a local group here in Sacramento that is going to push back against the abuses of project labor agreements that have been used on projects increasingly in this town, like by the city of San Diego, like with Aggie Square, like with Kings Arena, and stand up for the rights of the 87% of the local construction workforce that chooses to be union-free. That means active at a political level, at a public relations level, and doing things like this, which is letting the world see and the local community see that these are the faces of the workers in the region. They're not wearing union labels, they're wearing no labels at all, just the companies that they work for. That's the reality. I want to thank the workers for taking time out of their day to join us down here for this announcement. So we're here in Sacramento at Sacramento City Hall, and Sacramento for the last 20 plus years has been relatively free of discrimination in the form of what we refer to as project labor agreements and the CEQA abuse that's oftentimes used to get them to be signed. CEQA was the California Environmental Quality Act that unions have been abusing in order to get PLAs put into place. And the workers that are standing behind me represent various companies throughout the region that just want to be able to bid and work on construction projects paid for with their tax dollars. That has been made more difficult as the most recent years have gone by, where PLAs have become more ubiquitous on projects. And the way that they've been implemented through CEQA abuse and abusing the environmental process has gotten to the point where it needs to be stopped. So what we're announcing today is the creation of a local group that specifically will focus on projects within the greater Sacramento region, both public and private, that are currently being targeted for discriminatory project labor agreements and keeping those open for all workers, non-union and union alike. Non-union workers make up 87% of the construction workforce in the state of California, 87%. A project labor agreement makes it all but impossible for that 87% to get work and to be able to work under it. And if they do, they have to pay into union dues, join a group they don't want to belong to, pay into union health, welfare, and pension plans that they won't vest in, thereby having that money stolen from them. And young men and women in state-approved non-union apprenticeship programs are not allowed to work on these projects at all. So the city of Sacramento, when it put its project labor agreement into place 4 years ago, it basically told the young men and women that are in state-approved apprenticeship programs here in Sacramento that they are not good enough to be able to work on projects built by the city of Sacramento. That's outrageous. So what we're going to do with this group are 4 things. 1, speak out more aggressively when these agreements rear their ugly head on projects, as they just did with the Aggie Square project, which unions coerced the UC Davis system and others into signing a PLA on all that work. $1.2 billion in work built under a project labor agreement. So these young men and women don't have an opportunity to work on it. That's outrageous. And we're going to oppose them vocally, fight them at the political level, but also work to get people elected that will work to ensure that their rights are protected as well. What we want to do is let people know that the face of the silent majority is standing behind me. Black, white, brown, Asian, man, woman. The reality is that unions are very vocal. I know they think they do run places like this and the Capitol across the street, but the population needs to understand that there is a large group of people who happen to work union-free because they choose to work union-free, and they should not be discriminated against for making that decision. So we are going to be getting not only a political action committee together to help elect more rational people to elective office in the region who will fight for their rights and represent their interests, but make sure that the union bosses aren't the only ones whose voices are being heard in City Hall, at the Capitol, and in cities in the region. If they want to work, they should have to compete for it. They shouldn't be handed welfare in the form of project labor agreements, oftentimes used in CEQA to extort owners into doing it anyway, as was happened with the Kings Arena. They were forced to sign a project labor agreement because otherwise, at the time, Senator Steinberg was not going to allow that project to have the CEQA process made more streamlined. A lot of people forgot that, but that's what happened with the arena. So they put a project labor agreement on it, and it was built with primarily union labor. Union labor builds a good product, they do a good work, but they should have to compete for that work, and that's what we're going to start doing. There's a lot more to be said. I hope you'll take a few moments to speak to individual owners and workers that are here today to announce this. But with what's happened, and the last thing I'll say is this with regards to CEQA, because this is really grotesque, and I'll read what the Sacramento Bee said about it actually, because I think it really speaks to what it is we are facing. The Sacramento Bee said, critics call this practice of using CEQA greenmail, a polite term for legal extortion. The combined effect is to drive up the cost of new houses, hospital beds, and other projects with little or no benefit for the environment. Consider the example of William Copper, a former mayor of Davis. Copper is suing or threatening to sue the Rail Yard, Greenbrier Project in Natomas, Placer Vineyards, Yuba Highlands, etc., over alleged CEQA violations. Copper won't disclose his clients, but we know who they are. They are labor unions. That's the Sacramento Bee asking, where are the environmentalists? Why aren't they standing up to this? It's outrageous. So we are going to be exposing this more forcefully. We're going to be opposing it both politically and public relations wise. And it's time. These projects like the Memorial Auditorium renovation, like the Convention Center expansion, like Aggie Square, they need to be open for everybody to work on. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have. We do appreciate you being here. This is kind of our announcing to the world exactly what's going to be happening here. And we're excited to open up a new chapter. It's something we've been doing for quite a while, but it needs to be done at another level because frankly, the unions have reached a level of aggressiveness that demands that we step up our game here. And that's what we're doing. So Californians for Construction Equality is what the name of the new group is here in Sacramento. And we look forward to having that group be more represented in the community. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. I mean, there's really 16 trades or so that sign all of these project labor agreements. But if you look at the ones that are really forcefully pushing these, it's typically about 4 or 5 of them. The IBEW, which are the electrical unions. The reality is, if you look at the largest electrical union contractors in the city, 7 out of 10 of them are non-union, including the top 3. So the IBEW is tired of competing against these people because they do a better job of them, frankly. If things remain the way that they are without a project labor agreement, the unions have every right to bid them as non-union contractors have a right to bid them. With the PLA, the unions are given a priority in bidding them, and the non-union side, it's made harder because now they have to, in essence, become union. We're not a right to work state, so this isn't about that issue per se. What it is, it's almost the opposite of that issue in that non-union contractors and workers and apprentices are being told they do have to become union in order to work on a private job. So I should say it is about right to work, but in an almost an opposite direction. And we're just arguing that they should be able to bid and work in a way. Some of them probably worked in the union at one point. I have 2 union cards. I work for union contractors and non-union contractors. But they should be able to make the choice themselves. And right now they can't. If they want to work on the City of Sacramento projects, they have to sign on to a project labor agreement to do so. The apprentices that are in the non-union programs can't even work on these projects. They do have to go join it. They have to drop out of their apprenticeship program. They have to drop out of the program they're in, join the union and start all over again, which of course is terrible. It's a waste of their time and money. So the apprentices that are in non-union programs right here in the city cannot work on these projects for the City of Sacramento. This is a very union-friendly town and a very union-friendly state. We have no problems with unions, but when their leaders make it more difficult and discriminate against non-union workers and contractors and apprentices, then we have a problem. And we have to step up our game and fight back for their rights. Sacramento, until Darrell Steinberg was elected, under Heather Fargo and Mayor Johnson, both Democrats, were not pushing project labor agreements on projects. This mayor has begun to do that, and it's been deleterious to their rights, to the taxpayers who pay more for their projects, and it's got to stop. It's out of control, and frankly, it's gone, but it's beyond him. It's other entities in the area. And I have papers here that list all the PLAs in the area that have been implemented. But it really transcends just Sacramento. Elk Grove's been considering them for a while. We're now talking about West Sacramento, looking into them. City of Davis, fortunately, has been pretty PLA-free, but there have been discussions on private projects there. So we just want to be a more vocal, forceful force for our rights in this region now. Sierra Community College, just recently was considering one before it got pulled. So it's all over the region, and it's our job to make sure they stop.